Hello all, and welcome to another video that nobody asked for, but it's a topic I want to talk about because I think it's kind of important for maybe some people in this world. And if you found this video and it's important to you, then I accomplished my goal. And the topic of today's video is why you should get a 50 Fahrenheit degree backpacking quilt instead of a 40 Fahrenheit degree backpacking quilt for summer backpacking or generally warmer weather backpacking. And I'm going to feature this Loco Libre 50 degree quilt. Can't remember if it's called the Ghost Pepper or not. Maybe I should have looked that up before I started this video. But it is an ultralight Loco Libre quilt. I originally just kind of wanted to do a review of this quilt, but unfortunately the owner of Loco Libre, George Carr, had some health issues related to COVID. Currently not accepting orders, so I don't think it's really like appropriate for me to make a review about a quilt when people can't order it, and there's more important things that Loco Libre has to worry about at the moment. So really, I'm just gonna feature this quilt in this video to just talk about what reasons you might get a 50 degree quilt and maybe some features of 50 degree quilts in general, and not so much focus on the Loco Libre quilt itself. I'm back, and I just want to jump into why you might find yourself getting a 50 degree quilt instead of a 40 degree quilt for ultralight summer backpacking and warmer weather backpacking. And usually the recommendation is the 40 degree quilt, but in my experience, there's some climates that it really doesn't get cold enough at night in the summer to justify that 40 degree quilt. And I live in the Midwest United States. It's humid, it's hot in the summertime. You may not even need a quilt in the warmest months, or even want to go backpacking in the warmest months, because it kind of sucks to backpack when it's like 90 degrees outside. It's awful. But so you might live in like a hot and humid area, or generally an area that's not really ever going to get below 50 in the summertime, or even below 60, and you just don't need that 40 degree quilt. So that's why you might find yourself getting a 50 degree quilt for your backpacking. Another reason you get a 50 degree quilt is you want to go with the lightest weight possible, and you're going to figure out different ways to sort of extend the capabilities of your quilt by maybe wearing long sleeve shirt to bed, wearing a stocking cap, wearing maybe a pair of pants to sleep at night, and you want to go as light as possible and not have to go with the extra weight from a 40 degree quilt. For example, this quilt is only 12.5 ounces in a long and a wide size. So I'm 6 feet tall, and this has plenty of room for me. 12.5 ounce quilt is pretty light. You're gonna struggle to find lighter weights than that for long and wide in 50 degree. Maybe you could go get something from like Timbermade. Timbermade pushes the limits, and they've got some lighter 50 degree quilts. But this quilt had everything I wanted, and if you want to maybe push the limits with the weight and capabilities of your equipment, then a 50 degree quilt might be the right one for you. The next thing I like to discuss are some features of 50 degree quilts that make them different than 40 degree quilts and other quilts rated for colder temperatures. And the most obvious one is that there are no walls between the baffles. This is a sewn through quilt. So most quilts for backpacking are going to have walls between the baffles that prevent the down from shifting between the different baffles and evens it out and allows it to capture more warmth. Well, a 50 degree quilt doesn't exactly need those walls between the baffles to keep you warm at 50 degrees. So this thing is just sewn all the way through, and it's kind of hard to show, but there's just not a lot of height between the different baffles because it's sewn through. That will create more cold spots, but in my opinion, it does keep you warm at 50 degrees. Another thing you're not going to have on a 50 degree quilt, there's not going to be any sort of draft collar. You don't really need a draft collar on the head end, on the neck end, in order to keep you warm, just to keep the drafts out. You just cinch it up here, and it's gonna keep you warm. That's actually not the right way to close this up, and it's Okay, yeah, and then you do. Okay, anyway, another feature, I think, to me, this is pretty important for a 50-degree quilt. I think a 50-degree quilt should have an open foot box, okay? I don't think you really want a closed foot box with a 50-degree quilt because it's just not going to be used for that cold temperatures. And you can close up the foot box, and then put on a pair of socks for yourself, and that's really all you're going to need to keep yourself warm. Now, I just want to say real quick that I recorded this little blurb after the main video because I wanted to go into more detail about why I think the open foot box is an advantage compared to a sewn closed foot box on a 50-degree quilt in particular. Now, if you have a sewn closed foot box, it's going to be a touch lighter than this whole apparatus here, but you're not going to have the ability to vent the foot end at the upper end of the temperature range. So let's say it's 65, 70 degrees. You're probably going to want to have an open foot box, if not unbutton the whole thing or unzip the whole thing. And then when the temperature gets colder, you can just cinch it closed and then, bring the draw cord down, throw on a pair of socks, and it's going to keep your feet warm at 45, 50 degrees. You have a closed foot box, that's really only going to be an advantage at the lower end of the temperature range. And when we're talking about a sewn-through 50-degree rated quilt, I really don't think that closed foot box is necessary. In terms of loft height of a 50-degree quilt, the target loft that most quilts use is for 50 degrees. It's going to be 1 inch. And I'm not sure how that varies between manufacturers, but most quilt manufacturers in the ultralight world, they're going to say 1 inch for 50-degree quilt, and they're going to go up a half inch in loft for every 10 degrees you go down. So 40 degrees, 1.5 inches of loft. 30 degrees, 2.0 inches of loft, so on, so forth, as you work your way down. And I don't know if 1 is like the top loft height or like the average loft height, but I can tell you for this quilt's rated to 50 degrees. The loft varies from about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches along the height of the baffles. And obviously your loft is going to be 0 at the sewn ends, or the sewn part of the baffle. But I've got about 1.25 to 1.5 inches of loft. That keeps me warm at 50 degrees as long as I dress appropriately, like wear a long sleeve shirt and wear a very light stocking cap. So those are just a few features of 50-degree quilts. And then this quilt itself has some individual features I like. So you got the open foot box, and it's closed with buttons on the bottom. Most quilts sort of have a zipper closing, but that's one of the reasons I got a Loco Libre quilt, because it has the button bottom instead of zippers. Because one, I think it will, it's going to reduce the weight a little bit compared to the zipper. I think, I'm not sure. I don't have a zipper that would be used to compare it, but I think it reduces the weight a little bit compared to a zipper. So I like the button closure. Yeah, it's a little bit more fidgety than a zipper, because a zipper you can just go bum, ba-doom, 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 and these things you have to individually snap. But I'll tell you what, I usually just keep this thing closed and snapped, and I have enough airflow if I need to cool off a little bit, and then I can just stick my feet out the end if I do need to cool off. I rarely ever use it in the whole blanket style. I rarely ever unsnap it all the way and use it in the whole blanket style, like this, yeah. But I just kind of keep the foot box closed most of the time when I'm using the quilt. This thing does have the pad straps. I have pad straps I can put on this, and these are the hooks you put on the pad straps. I'm not sure really how important that is for 50-degree quilts, because you're just not going to it's not going to get that cold when you're using it. You really shouldn't use this if it's like below 45 or 50, in my opinion, because it's just, below 45 or 40, in my opinion, because it's not going to keep you warm. And the pad straps, I'll use the bottom pad strap here, but not really the top pad strap. I think it gets me a little too confined. Really personal preference. So 50-degree quilt, pad straps, I think, yeah, when you're pushing the limit, you're going to want those pad straps. But most of the time, I don't really need the pad straps on a 50-degree quilt. And then it's, you've got your typical drawstring closures, and these are really minimalist drawstring closures. This is probably 1 millimeter cord, and these cord locks are just really tiny cord locks. This This thing is designed to be the lightest weight possible with this tiny cord and cord locks, button snaps instead of a zipper. This is 10 denier fabric. You can go lighter. You can maybe get like a 7 denier fabric. I think I've even seen 5 denier fabric out there. I don't know if anyone's used it on quilts, but I know there's some stuff made out there with 5 denier fabric. Just really pushing the limits. 950 fill power loft. So this particular Loco Libre quilt, the features on it were designed to be as lightweight as possible. And if you do want a 50-degree quilt as lightweight as possible, you are going to integrate features that do push the limits a little bit. Like I said before, this is 12.5 ounces and long and wide. There's plenty of room for me at 6 feet, about 175 pounds. You can maybe fit somebody a little taller and wider in here. So those are just some things that I thought were important to talk about in a 50-degree quilt and what might make it a little bit different than a 40-degree quilt or colder, warmer. I don't know. Just rated lower. There we go. That works. Rated lower. The last thing I wanted to discuss is, does this particular 50-degree quilt have the construction and features and loft to keep me warm at its stated 50-degree rating? Now, Loco Libre, like I said, I'm not going to do a super thorough review, but I believe this is built with the features and the loft to keep me warm. I've taken this into upper 40s, maybe even as low as 45. You know, I'm not sure. I don't bring a thermometer with me in the tent, but I know that I looked at the forecast, and the night's forecast was upper 40s and maybe a little colder, and it has kept me warm to that stated temperature rating. Now, I might have had to wear a little stocking cap. I might have had to throw on a long sleeve shirt to sleep in. I don't think I've really ever worn pants in this because I might go on a trip and not even bring anything but rain pants if it's going to be a low of 50, 45 degrees. It has kept me warm, so I think this 1 1/4 to 1/2 an inch loft height is enough. It doesn't have a closed footbox, but if I close it up, I throw on a pair of socks. If I put on at least one set of pad straps, if I close up the neck closure, if I just tighten everything like it's supposed to on a quilt, this thing, in my opinion, keeps me warm to 50 degrees, and if not, a little bit below. So, yeah, I think the features on a 50-degree quilt, you're going to need to keep you warm. You're going to need to have an adequate amount of loft, and I believe probably a little bit more than an inch of loft is necessary to keep you warm. So this thing is warmer and lighter than some other sleeping bags that I had in the past. I'm really happy I got a 50-degree quilt instead of a 50-degree sleeping bag because this just has a lot of versatility. I can use this anywhere from mid 40s to probably, 65, upper 60s, because at some point it's just going to be too hot. If it's like above 70, it's kind of hard to sleep at night when you're backpacking. To be honest, I might just have a sleeping bag liner or just wear like my long sleeve shirt and drape something over my legs, or not even like going to bed sweating at night sucks. That's all I'm going to say. When you're backpacking or camping and you're sweating when you go to bed at night because it's so hot, it just sucks. So you don't even need a 50-degree quilt in 75, in 80% humidity or whatever. I don't know. But anyways, that's enough of me rambling on. I just wanted to make a video of why you might find yourself needing a 50-degree quilt instead of a 40-degree quilt, and it features this Loco Libre quilt, which you really can't order now, but hopefully in the future, Loco Libre will be taking orders and building new quilts, and I really hope they do because I like this quilt a lot. It's one of the lighter 50-degree quilts I could find out there, and I hope George Carr's able to get back to doing what he likes to do, and can share his products with enthusiasts out there. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys later with another video that nobody asked for. But anyways, I'll see you later.